Task number 11, WebShells. Task number 11, WebShells. This task is part of the What the Shell module, which is a prerequisite of the Upload Vulnerabilities module from the complete beginner path that we are doing. So, WebShells. There are times when we encountered websites that allow us an opportunity to upload in some way or another an executable file. Ideally, we would use this opportunity to upload code that would activate a reverse or a bind shell. But sometimes this is not possible. In these cases, we would instead upload a web shell. See the Upload Vulnerabilities room for a more extensive look at this concept. This is exactly why we are doing this module, because we will go through Upload Vulnerabilities room. Web shell is a colloquial term for a script that runs inside a web server, usually in a language such as PHP or ASP, which executes code on the server. Essentially, commands are entered into the web page, either through a web HTML form or directly as arguments in the URL, which are then executed by the script, with the results returned and written to the page. This can be extremely useful if there are firewalls in place, or even just as a stepping stone into a fully fledged reverse or a bind shell. As PHP is still the most common server-side language, let's have a look at some simple code for this, in a very basic one-line format. And here we can see that. So this is basically a little PHP code that uses the command line to execute commands. This will take a get request, get parameter in the URL and execute it on the system with shell execute, right? Essentially what this means is that any commands we enter in the URL after $CMD equals will be executed on the system, be it Windows or Linux. The pre-elements are to ensure that the results are formatted correctly on the page. Let's see this in action. And here you can see exactly that, shell.php, and then the command line equal if config. Here we can see the result of that. So basically in the file shell.php, there is this little code, right? And after we get the command that we enter here, it will be executed. Notice that when navigating the shell, we used a get parameter CMD with the command ifconfig, which correctly returned the network information of the box. In other words, by entering the ifconfig command used to check the network interfaces on a Linux target into the URL or out shell, it was executed on this system with the results returned to us. This would work for any other command we choose to use, wmi, hostname, arch, etc. As mentioned previously, there are a variety of web shells available on Kali by default at user share web shells, including the infamous Pentest Monkey PHP reverse shell, a full reverse shell written in PHP. Note that most generic language specific, for example PHP reverse shells, are written for Unix-based targets such as Linux web servers. They will not work on Windows by default. When the target is Windows, it is often easiest to obtain remote code execution using a web shell or by using MSF Venom to generate a reverse bind shell in the language of the server. With the former method, obtaining remote code execution is often done with a URL encoded PowerShell reverse shell. This would be copied into the URL as a command argument. This will be Actually, you will copy the entire thing. After CMD equals, it will equals this. This is the same shell we encountered in task number 8. However, it has been URL encoded to be used safely in a get parameter. Remember that the IP and port bold towards the end of the top line will still need to be changed in the above code. Answer the questions below. Read the web shell information.